She was just doing her job. A black woman, elegant, composed, carrying that silver tray with the kind of precision that only comes from years of doing everything right, and still having to prove it every single night. Her name was Layla Bennett, and on this particular Thursday night in the most expensive casino in Las Vegas, she made the mistake of serving champagne to a man who believed his money gave him the right to treat people like furniture. He didn't just complain. He didn't just humiliate her with words in front of everyone at that VIP table. He picked up the glass, and he threw the champagne. At her uniform, at the gold bracelet her grandmother had left her, at 4 years of silence and sacrifice and every bill she had ever paid alone and every night class she had ever attended exhausted and every smile she had ever worn in rooms that didn't deserve it. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She turned around and walked away. Because that is what you do when you have too much to lose. But what she didn't know was that 3 tables away, a man in a black suit had seen everything. A man whose name made people lower their voices. A man with a dragon tattooed on his neck and cold, quiet eyes that had already decided what was going to happen next. The most dangerous Korean casino owner in Las Vegas had just watched a billionaire make the last mistake of his very expensive life. And what happened next? Nobody in that room would ever forget. Before starting the story, comment down below where you are watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a member and help our channel. There is a kind of silence that does not come from the absence of sound. Las Vegas never goes quiet. Not at midnight. Not at 3 in the morning. Not ever. The machines keep spinning, the chips keep falling, the ice keeps cracking in crystal glasses, and somewhere behind a velvet rope, someone is always winning something they do not deserve. But inside the Black Jade Casino, there was a particular silence on that Thursday night, the kind that lives underneath everything else, underneath the music and the laughter and the sound of money changing hands. A silence that had a shape and a temperature and a name. Her name was Layla Bennett. She had been carrying that silence for 4 years. Not because she was a quiet person by nature. Anyone who had seen her laugh, really laugh, not the professional smile she wore like a second uniform, would tell you she lit up a room without trying. Her colleagues called her Sunshine, and not ironically. It was the truest nickname anyone had ever given anyone. But Sunshine learns, over time, which rooms it is allowed to fill. And Layla Bennett had spent 4 years learning the geometry of this particular room. Which tables tipped well, which faces to read before approaching, which kinds of men wore their danger on the outside, and which ones hid it behind tailored suits and Geneva watches and the easy confidence of someone who has never once been told no by anyone who could afford to mean it. She had learned all of it, every inch. She had mapped this casino the way a sailor maps weather. Not because the sea is safe, but because knowing it is the only protection you have. And still, some storms you cannot see coming, no matter how long you have been watching the horizon. Richard Calloway III had arrived at 8:15 that evening with the specific energy of a man celebrating something at someone else's expense. His table was loud before the drinks arrived. His laughter had edges. His eyes moved over people the way a man's eyes move over furniture, assessing value, finding none, moving on. He had the particular cruelty of those who have confused being feared with being respected for so long that the difference had long since dissolved inside him. He ordered the most expensive champagne on the menu the way a man marks territory. Not because he wanted it, because he wanted everyone within earshot to know he could. Layla brought it. She brought it with the balance and precision of someone who has carried things carefully her entire life. Not just trays, but feelings and silences, and the specific weight of being watched and underestimated at the same time. She set the glass in front of him. She smiled. She waited. He didn't look at her. He picked up the glass, held it up toward the chandelier light, brought it back down, and pushed it away. He said it was warm. She offered to check the temperature. He said something then. Not about the temperature. Not about the champagne. He said something about levels, about certain kinds of people, about places where they did and did not belong. He said it the way men like him always say things like that. Not loudly, not aggressively, with perfect plausible deniability built into every syllable. A tone that knew exactly what it was doing, and knew, or believed it knew, that nothing would happen. And then he picked up the glass, and he threw the champagne at her. Not toward her, at her, at the uniform, at the pulsera on her wrist that had belonged to her grandmother, at the 4 years and the night classes and the Alabama phone calls, and the specific architecture of a life built carefully against every wind that had ever blown against it. The liquid hit and ran. She did not move. She did not cry. She did not say a single word. She turned around, and she walked toward the service corridor, and the tray was still level in her hand when she pushed through the door. 3 tables away, a man in a black Tom Ford suit set down a glass of mineral water and stood up. There are men who move through a room the way weather moves through a valley. You do not always see it coming. You feel it first, in the way conversations lower half a volume, in the way eyes find something else to look at, in the way the air itself seems to reorganize around a presence that has not announced itself and does not need to. Kwon Jae-won had walked through rooms like this his entire adult life. He had learned early that the loudest man in a space is almost never the most dangerous one. Dangerous men do not need to announce themselves. They simply arrive, and the room adjusts. He crossed the casino floor in 12 steps. He did not signal security. He did not raise his voice. He did not alter his expression by a single degree. The dragon tattooed on the left side of his neck, black ink climbing toward his jaw, scales detailed enough that they seemed to shift when he turned his head, caught the amber light of the chandeliers as he walked, and it was the only dramatic thing about him. Everything else was stillness. Everything else was the specific calm of a man who has already decided what is going to happen and finds no reason to perform the deciding. Richard Calloway III was mid-sentence when Kwon stopped 2 meters from his table. He stopped talking. Not because he felt threatened. Men like Richard Calloway stopped talking when interrupted the way a television pauses, involuntarily, with the full expectation of resuming. He looked at the man standing before him with the mild irritation of someone whose evening had been briefly inconvenienced. He did not recognize danger because he had spent 54 years building a life in which danger was something that happened to other people. Kwon said nothing for 3 full seconds. In a casino, 3 seconds is a long time. Long enough for the nearest dealer to stop shuffling. Long enough for 2 cocktail waitresses to find something urgent to do in the opposite direction. Long enough for the men at Richard's table to begin the slow, cellular process of understanding that something was happening that they did not have the vocabulary for yet. Then Kwon spoke. 1 word. A name. Richard's name. And then 2 more words after it. Stand up. Not a suggestion. Not a request dressed as a command. simply a statement of what was about to occur, delivered in the tone a man uses when he is describing physics. Things fall. Water flows. You will stand up. Richard laughed. It was the laugh of a man performing confidence for an audience. He looked at his table. He looked back. He said something about knowing who Quan was. He said something about this being a misunderstanding. He began to construct, in real time, the scaffolding of a version of events in which he was reasonable and the man standing before him was the problem. He was still building it when Quan reached across the table. Not for Richard, for the bottle. The Armand de Blignac sat where Layla had left it, golden, reflecting the room back at itself, 2/3 full and cold and completely indifferent to what was about to happen to it. Quan picked it up with both hands. No urgency, no theater. The obsidian ring on his right index finger caught the light as his fingers closed around the neck of the bottle, and he lifted it slowly, the way a man lifts something he has every right to touch in a place that belongs entirely to him. Because it did. All of it. Every chandelier and every marble tile and every velvet rope and every glass and every bottle in this room bore his name in some document somewhere, and he had never once felt the need to say so out loud, because ownership of that kind does not require announcement. He tilted the bottle, and he poured. 2/3 of $700 of French champagne fell in a slow, luminous arc onto the head of Richard Calloway III. It ran through the silver hair and down the sides of his face, and soaked the collar of the Brioni suit, and darkened the shoulder of the jacket, and pooled in the crease of his lap, and dripped from his jaw onto the table where his phone sat, and where his glass sat, and where, 30 seconds ago, he had been the most powerful man in the room. No one moved. No one spoke. The bottle was empty. Quan placed it back on the table with a sound that was barely a sound at all. Controlled. Precise. Final. Then he said something. He said it quietly, the way you say something that does not need volume because it is already true. He said, "Now you are both at the same level." And he turned around, and he walked toward the service corridor door. Behind him, Richard Calloway sat with champagne running down his face, and his mouth open, and his eyes doing something they had not done in decades. Searching. Searching for the response, the exit, the leverage, the angle, the version of this moment in which he still held the power. He found nothing. The room was still watching. And the silence that followed was not Layla's silence. It was not the silence of someone absorbing a blow and deciding whether to survive it. It was the silence of a room full of witnesses who had just watched something they would not forget, processing the specific and unfamiliar feeling of having seen accountability arrive without warning, without negotiation, and without the faintest concern for whether it was convenient. Somewhere behind the service corridor door, a woman stood against a cold metal wall with a silver tray still in her hand. She had not heard what happened yet. She was still deciding whether to cry. She would not need to. The service corridor smelled like cold metal and cleaning solution, and the particular exhaustion of people who keep the world running for other people without ever being seen doing it. Layla had been in this corridor hundreds of times. She knew the sound the door made when it closed, a specific hydraulic hiss, followed by a click that meant the casino floor and everything on it was temporarily somewhere else. She knew the exact temperature of the wall against her shoulders. She knew how long she could stand here before someone came looking. She had done the math on all of it, the way you do the math on a space when it is the only space where you are allowed to be exactly as tired as you actually are. She was looking at the pulsera on her wrist when the door opened. She straightened, shoulders back, chin level. The posture was automatic, 4 years deep in the muscle memory, the body's fastest way of saying, "I am fine," before the mouth has decided whether that is true. But it was not the manager. She registered this in pieces. The tuxedo was wrong. The managers wore navy. This was black. Then the height. Then the stillness. Then the eyes. Dark and measuring, and somehow both completely calm and completely awake at the same time, the way the surface of deep water is calm without being shallow. She had seen him on the floor before. She had poured water at a table 12 feet from him once, 14 months ago. She had noted him the way you note a fixed point in a landscape. Present, permanent, not something you approach. She had never been in a small room with him before. She became aware, in a way that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with precision, that the corridor had gotten smaller. He looked at her for a moment without speaking. Not the way Richard Calloway had looked at her, through her, past her, at the version of her that existed only as a function. This was different. This was the look of someone actually taking inventory, actually seeing. She spoke first because silence in small rooms with powerful men had never been something she was willing to let run too long. She told him that if she had done something wrong at the table, she could explain. He said she had done nothing wrong. She started to say something about Calloway being an important client. She was already building the architecture of the excuse, the de-escalation, the careful language that keeps a woman employed when the alternative is a very specific kind of powerlessness. She had built this architecture before. She was fast at it. He interrupted her before she finished. He said Calloway was a client. Then he paused. Then he said the word was. She stopped building. The word landed differently than she expected. Not like a threat. Not like a performance. Like a fact being reported from a place where the outcome had already been determined, and the only remaining question was logistics. She asked him what he meant. He told her to finish her break. He said when she returned to the floor, Calloway would no longer be there. He said it the way a man says the weather will clear, not as a promise, but as an observation about something already in motion. Then he started to leave, and she said his name. Not Mr. Kwan, not Sir. His name. All of it. Kwan Tae-won. She said it the way you say something out loud for the first time when you have only read it before. Carefully, testing the weight of each syllable, making sure you are holding it correctly. He turned back. She asked him why. And the man who had not explained himself to anyone in longer than he could clearly remember stood in a service corridor that smelled like cleaning solution and cold metal, and said 4 words that he had never said to anyone in this building, in this city, in this version of his life. He said his mother was an employee. He said it simply. No decoration, no context offered. Just the fact, placed between them like an object on a table. Here, this is real. This is the thing underneath everything else. She did not say she was sorry immediately. She looked at him first. Really looked. The way she had not allowed herself to look at someone like him before, because looking costs something, and she had learned to spend carefully. She looked at the tattoo on his neck, and the ring on his finger, and the single champagne droplet that had reached the left cuff of his jacket, and the eyes that were still doing the same thing they had been doing when he walked in. Seeing. Actually seeing. She asked if his mother was still in Seoul. He said she had passed, 6 years ago. She said she was sorry. He said he was too. And then the silence came back. But it was not the silence from before. It was not the silence of the casino floor when champagne hit a uniform and a room full of people looked away. This was something different. This was the silence of two people who have recognized something in each other that neither of them has a word for yet, and are both intelligent enough not to reach for the wrong word just to fill the space. She looked down at the pulsera. The gold was still damp. She told him her grandmother had given it to her. She told him her grandmother had never left Alabama, had said that gold was the only thing no one could take from you. He looked at the bracelet on her wrist for a long moment. Then he said she was right. Then he left. And Layla Bennett stood alone in the service corridor with a silver tray in her hand and champagne drying on her uniform, and a pulsera that had survived everything it had ever been asked to survive. And she felt something shifting inside her chest. Not hope, exactly, because hope was a thing she rationed carefully, had always rationed carefully, but something adjacent to it. Something that felt like the first degree of a door opening. She straightened her uniform. She picked up her tray. She went back to work. 40 minutes later, when she walked back onto the casino floor, the table where Richard Calloway III had been sitting was occupied by 4 strangers playing cards and laughing about something that had nothing to do with any of this. He was gone, as if he had never been there at all, as if the room had simply corrected itself. 3 weeks is not a long time. In Las Vegas, 3 weeks is 12,000 hands of blackjack and 47 high roller arrivals, and approximately 900 gallons of champagne, served by people whose names the guests will never learn. 3 weeks is the distance between a Thursday night that changes everything and a Tuesday morning when the world looks almost exactly the same as it did before, except that it isn't. Except that something has shifted at the foundation level, where shifts are permanent and quiet and do not announce themselves until much later. Layla found the envelope on a Tuesday. She had been up since 5:30. The sociology reading for her final semester was on the passenger seat. Her coffee was from the gas station 2 blocks from her apartment because the good place didn't open until 7, and she had a parking spot she needed to hold until 8. She was running the day in her head the way she always ran the day, in segments, in logistics, in the careful sequencing of a life that had very little margin for disorder. When she saw the white rectangle tucked under the wiper blade of her car, she stood on the sidewalk in the early morning light and read it twice. Then a 3rd time. Then she sat down on the curb, which was something she had not done since she was 9 years old, and she read it once more, because the number at the bottom of the page was the kind of number that requires multiple readings before the brain agrees to accept it as real. She had not applied to any program. She knew that. She was certain of that. She had not filled out a form or submitted a resume or spoken to anyone in management about anything other than table assignments and shift coverage. She had done none of the things this letter was describing her as having done. And yet the letter existed, on paper with the black jade letterhead embossed in gold at the top, formal and official, and completely indifferent to the fact that it was describing a version of events that had not occurred. The next morning, she went directly to the manager's office before her shift. He looked mildly uncomfortable, in the specific way that people look when they are holding information they were not entirely sure they were supposed to share. He told her it was an internal indication. He told her it came from upstairs. He said the word upstairs the way people in that building always said it, as a location and a concept simultaneously, a place on the floor plan that also existed somewhere outside of geography entirely. She thanked him. She took the elevator. She had never been on the upper floor before. The carpet was different up there, darker, quieter somehow. The kind of material that absorbs sound as a deliberate design choice. The air was cooler. The woman at the desk outside the corner office looked at her without surprise, which meant she had been expected, which meant he had known she was coming before she had decided to come, which was the kind of thing that should have unsettled her, and instead, for reasons she did not examine immediately, did not. The office door was open. He was on the phone. He looked up when she entered and made a gesture with 2 fingers, a small, economical motion that meant, "Come in," and also meant, "I will be 1 moment." And also, underneath both of those things meant, "I am glad you came." Though he would not have said that last part out loud, and she would not have claimed to have read it there. She walked to the window while she waited. She looked down at the casino floor below, the tables, the dealers, the morning staff setting up for the day, the stations where the trays were stored and the glasses were polished and the ice was restocked. She had looked up at this window before, not often, not deliberately, but in the way you occasionally look up at a thing that exists above your daily geography without expecting it to look back. From up here, it looked different. Not smaller, exactly. More legible. Like a language she already spoke, seen written down for the first time. He ended the call. She turned around and placed the envelope on his desk. She told him she had not applied. He said he knew. She asked him why. He told her the truth, plainly, without softening it and without inflating it, which she recognized as its own form of respect, the form that does not require the other person to be managed. He said she was in her final semester of a degree. He said she worked 8 hours a night and still studied. He said she could be running operations at a place like this within 2 years, but that she would not have the opportunity if she remained where she was. He said opportunity was not charity. He said there was a difference. He said he knew the difference, and he was offering the former. She stood across the desk from him and looked at him for a long moment. She asked why she should trust him. He did not tell her she should. He did not construct an argument or offer a list of reasons or perform the kind of reassurance that is really just pressure wearing a friendlier coat. He said she did not need to trust him yet. And then he said he would like her to give him the chance to earn it. And the word earn sat between them with a weight that she recognized, because it was a word she had built her entire life around. And hearing it in that office, from that man, in that particular quiet tone, felt like something clicking into alignment that she had not known was misaligned. She picked up her bag. She said she would start Monday. He nodded once. She left. And that was how Layla Bennett moved from the casino floor to the upper level. Not with fanfare. Not with the dramatic reinvention that stories like to assign to moments of change, but with a Monday morning and a new desk and a window of her own, and the slow daily work of becoming what she had always been capable of being in a room that finally had enough light to see it. 2 months after that Monday, on a Tuesday morning that looked like any other Tuesday morning, 3 major publications ran simultaneous front-page investigations into the financial practices of the Callaway Capital Group. Anonymous sources, detailed documentation, account numbers and dates and names, and a 2019 supply chain agreement that the Callaway legal team had spent considerable resources making disappear, now reappeared, in full, with annotations. No one claimed the documents. No investigation ever traced them to a source. The SEC opened a formal inquiry within 72 hours. 2 of Richard Callaway's Zurich partners retained separate counsel by the end of the week. His son's enrollment at Columbia was reviewed by the Financial Aid Office, following an anonymous inquiry regarding the origins of the family's declared assets. His daughter's scholarship foundation quietly suspended its activities pending an internal audit. Richard Calloway III gave one interview 3 weeks after the story broke, in which he described the allegations as politically motivated and entirely without merit. He was wearing a different suit. His hair was combed. He looked like a man performing composure for an audience he was no longer certain was sympathetic. No one who had been in the Black Jade Casino on that Thursday night watched that interview and felt surprised. On a Thursday evening, 6 months after all of it, after the champagne and the corridor and the envelope and the Monday morning and the investigations and the quiet dismantling of a man who had believed himself immune to consequence, Kwon Jae-won appeared in the doorway of an office on the upper floor. He was not wearing a suit. Dark trousers, a dark shirt open at the collar, the dragon on his neck fully visible in the warm evening light coming through the window. The obsidian ring. No watch. He looked, for the first time in all the months she had been watching him from the corner of her professional attention, like a man who was not working. He asked if she had been to Nobu. She looked up from her laptop. She said no. He said he had a reservation at 9. She asked if it was a command or an invitation. He thought about it. Genuinely thought about it. The way he thought about everything. Completely. Without performance. Arriving at the answer only when he had it. He said it was an invitation. She asked what the difference was. He said that with a command, she would have no choice. She closed the laptop. She picked up her bag. Black leather, simple, chosen to last. She checked the gold hoop earrings in the small mirror above her desk. She adjusted the pulsera on her wrist, the gold warm under the evening light, dry and intact and exactly where it had always been. She stood up and looked at him. She said that was a good answer. They left the building side by side, through the lobby and past the casino floor and out through the main entrance, where the Las Vegas night was warm and loud and full of light in every direction. The kind of night that does not know or care about the weight of what has brought 2 specific people to the same doorway at the same moment, and does not need to. In the car, moving through the lit streets, she turned toward him. She thanked him. For the champagne, she said. His champagne. The one he had poured. He said there had been 2/3 of the bottle remaining. She said he could have saved it for a toast. He said he preferred to use it well. She laughed. And Kwon Jae-won, who had spent the better part of his adult life making decisions in rooms where laughter was not a variable, sat in the back of a car moving through the brightest city in the country and felt something settle inside his chest, quiet and unfamiliar, and not at all unwelcome. As the lights of Las Vegas slid past the window and the night continued around them, indifferent and enormous, and full of every kind of possibility. Some rooms, it turns out, have doors you did not know existed until someone decides you are worth opening them for. And some doors, once opened, do not close. Layla Bennett wasn't born lucky. She was born with discipline, with dignity, with the willingness to take care of herself when the world tried to do the opposite. And you who watched this story to the end, who felt something when she protected that bracelet, when she went upstairs, when she closed the laptop and said, "That was a good answer." You deserve the same level of care. That's why the link is in the description, in the pinned comment, and the QR code is now scrolling on the screen. It's Korean glass skin secrets for Black Queens 45+. The complete Korean skincare method specifically adapted for you. AM and PM routine. 15 ingredients that really work for mature melanin-rich skin. The 30-day challenge. And 3 bonuses. Hair ritual. at-home spa, and the 12 Korean teas that work on your skin from the inside out. Because taking care of yourself isn't vanity, it's the bravest thing a woman can do. The link is right there. The next step is yours. If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Have you ever been in a room where someone looked right through you? Where your work, your dignity, your worth were treated like they simply did not matter, and you had to stay silent because the cost of speaking was too high? And have you ever been surprised by the person who stood up for you? Someone you never expected, from a world completely different from your own, who saw you clearly when everyone else looked away. Tell us your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read them all. And if you believe in stories about dignity, justice, and love that finds you when you least expect it, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click Join to become a part of our community and help the channel.